Hello everyone, welcome back to some more From the Depths. Today we're going to be building our own boat. We're going to go over to new object, we're going to build a vehicle, we're going to build it off here in the water. I put down some more resource gatherers and things, just to help speed it up a little bit. Now we've got around 100,000 natural, so we're probably going to be building a wooden boat. And the best weapon to use for beginners is the missile, so we'll be taking a look at a missile boat. Probably going to be small, it's going to be fast, it's going to be cheap, and it's going to carry a few missiles for us, which we can link up to AI and have the AI fire them for us, and we can send out huge swarms of these. I'm probably building too big already, that's just instinct. I have built some other boats in this game already, and well, they're pretty big. Like you might have noticed on the thumbnail, there's a huge boat. That's actually something that I built myself. It is pretty big. It's about 47,000 blocks at the moment. And it costs about 4 million metal. While I do want to bring it into the series at one point, I'm gonna have to figure out all the new stuff basically. Like advanced cannons. I've pretty much got the hang of them now, but never hurts to know for sure how they work and everything. Basically I'm trying to set up small caliber AA guns on them right now. Which is going pretty well, all things considered. There we go, get a little bit of the bow. Wobbling a little bit. Hang on. We'll fix that right away before anybody gets seasick watching this. There we go, we're gonna attach it to there. And then we've got a more stable platform to work on. Rounding off the back of the ship as well. We're gonna go make sure to put down mirror line again. We don't have to do everything twice. Oops. There and then temporarily there. Actually, we'll do that another way. Fill that up and then get the... Right, there we go. Beautiful! It actually looks like a boat. That is a lot more than I can say for most of my things. And then simply get a little bit of a wall around it so we can have some things on the inside and have it be semi-protected. There we go. I'm gonna do most of the building on camera for now, but in the future I will just either speed it up or cut it out altogether, depends on what you guys prefer. There we go. That's looking pretty seaworthy, I guess. We can deselect it for a second, see how it floats. That's reasonable. Let's go ahead and just to be on the safe side, we'll go to water. We'll have an air pump, which is basically what helps us remain buoyant. Like if you have enclosed rooms, for example, if I were to build like that room is now not providing any buoyancy, but if we were to put an air pump in there, that will help us float, which is very useful on larger ships. You can have watertight compartments and everything like that. But for now we're just going to keep it simple, an open topped boat, keep it cheap. This is now debris. It's not actually connected to the ship anymore. It will disappear on its own, but we're going to just throw it off there for now. We will reattach to the tractor beam on here, which is very useful. And we're going to keep building. I'm going to put probably some small propellers on here. You know, we don't really need to go very fast. We'll put a rudder on there. That'll help us steer. Looks good. Turn mirror mode back on. We're gonna go put a vehicle controller on. We can actually put a ship's wheel on, which is just for boats. Looks a bit prettier in my opinion, but depends on the style of ship you're going for. Put down a chair that we can sit in. We can put down things like a control computer. Very useful on larger ships again, where you can have multiple weapon systems, and basically being close to the fire control computer allows you to control every weapon at the same time, instead of, for example, if I go close to this gun, you can see I now have control of this one gun. We've got fire control in there, I believe. We actually do not. Let's quickly put it down, I suppose. There we go. You can now see in the bottom left of the screen, we now control all the things, and if we fire all the missiles, we fire all the shells. So that is what a fire control computer does. Very useful. So I think we'll include one of those just for the sake of it. We're gonna put a turret in the front of the ship here. We're gonna go for a 1-axis turret. And the difference between a 1 and a 2-axis turret, which is something I can easily demonstrate to you right now. If we stop building on that turret. There we go, we'll put down a 2-axis turret. We'll switch to this one. There we go. Now to demonstrate the difference between a 1 and a 2-axis turret. Actually, we'll cut loose for a second. Just so we don't have that mess me up. You can see that the 2-axis turret actually points up and down. So it does both horizontal and vertical. Whereas the 1-axis turret is only horizontal. I find for most things that the 1-axis turret is preferable. But there's nothing wrong with having a 2-axis turret. Personally, I just prefer building single-axis turrets for like battleships when you have like a huge turret with like a ton of armor on it. I just prefer having it move one way, that way you know there's not going to be anything blocking it. And you can always just have different barrels on your ship. That will allow you to increase the angle of the barrel so you can fire further. But let's get back to building this missile turret. We're going to go to custom missiles over here. We're going to put down a missile controller, which is the basic block. We will press Q, where you can select things like required accuracy before fire, which is the angle that you have. You can put like constraints on the weapon, like saying you can only fire in certain angles. We're not going to do that for now. We're going to assign it to slot 1. That's pretty much it for now. We're going to put on a 6-way connector. And then we're going to put on a missile launch pad on both sides, so we can have 2 missiles at the same time. And now here's the important part. We're going to put down a missile block, which actually holds the missile. So now if we go over, we have 2 missiles on the front. We can turn it, we can aim it. Nothing blocking the way, so it rotates quickly. It's all well and good. Now we're going to hop back on and do that. Now of course, to fire we need ammunition, which comes in either ammo barrels or ammo parts boxes. For now, we're just going to stick with the ammo barrels. We'll put down 4, that should be enough for this ship. We can always test fire it later on. Now let's take a look at the missiles. There's a huge list of components here. We'll go through every one of them quickly. There's the body, which is just basically making it longer. You've got fins, Provide maneuverability, important for a seeking missile, beam rider or laser designated, especially important against high velocity targets, so either small boats or fast flying targets. Then you've got the fuel tank, which allows the thrusters and propellers to function longer, basically gives it additional range. You've got a short range thruster, it's fast, guzzles fuel, you can specify a start delay and a max fuel burn, so you can launch things with ejectors, which give it like an extra push. Sort of like firing a shell, but without actually using any propellant. It's just shooting some CO2 down the barrel, for example. But yeah, we've got the explosive warhead, which is basically explosives. Target prediction guidance will aim at the expected intercept point. It's not really important for these missiles, but if you want like fast interception missiles, this will be useful. APN guidance. It accelerates the missile such that the target is at a constant bearing. So basically it uses the fins to steer and aim ahead. Sort of like the target prediction guidance, but still different. You'll probably want to experiment a bit with those. Then you've got the infrared seeker. Has a 120 degree facing forwards. And within that it will detect targets. They prefer large and hot targets and tend to aim at engines or jets. So we've got our engine over here, which is working pretty hard. It's generating a lot of heat. And the hotter it gets, the more chance that our countermeasures will fail and that they will aim at our engine. And losing our engine would be bad. Next up, we've got the beam rider receiver. So you can place down a block on the missile launcher that laser designates a target. And then you have to put down a beam rider receiver, which is, I believe this is inline. Yeah, this is the inline component, which is basically you can put it anywhere on the missile. And then there's also the designator receiver, which has to go on the top of the missile. But you might want to have another warhead on there, basically. Next up, proximity fuse. If you get close, it goes boom. Pretty easy to understand. Safety fuse. Stops the missile exploding on the vehicle it was launched from under any circumstances. So no firing at your own ship, which is very useful. One turn. So, let's take a look at the Fortress real quick, because that is a great demonstration. These missiles will launch facing up. If we take a quick look at them, they've got a one turn on them, which means that if I go over to the missiles real quick, and I want to launch my missiles at the rock there, they will turn. Now the one turn is, as it says, it does one turn in the direction that you're looking. And to clarify that even further, we can do it facing reverse as well. There we go, missiles are reloading. Now they turn in the other direction that I was looking. So that is the one turn explained. Pretty useful. Let's get back to the next one on the list, the torpedo propeller. Yes, you can have both missiles, and your missiles can work as torpedoes. And to have them work as torpedoes, you need a propeller, which is very fuel efficient. Most torpedoes have like multiple propellers and only one fuel tank because they are that fuel efficient. And they also need a sonar, which is basically the infrared seeker, but converted for torpedo use. Most useful for hunting ships and submarines. Only targets components that are underwater and only works when you're underwater. Now of course there are submarines, so you might want to build a mine layer, which is basically a very short missile with like a warhead and a magnet. It will automatically be attracted to the center of mass of nearby vehicles, metallic or not. I think it has like a 50-meter range, something like that. You can put a delay on arming it. But yeah, magnets, very useful. Oh, there we go. You can actually set the range yourself, like want to have a huge minefield with 50 meters apart or something, then you can do that. You can delay the start time. Ballast tanks. Useful for torpedoes. You can leave it at 0, which basically allows the torpedo to guide itself. You can set it to float at a certain depth. Buoyancy change, you can set it to slowly sink, useful for mines, etc. You can have a regulator, which if you have a huge missile that you want to fire at an extremely long range, then you can put a regulator on it. It allows the missile to stay in play for 3 more minutes, because otherwise they disappear after yep, there we go, they disappear after a minute. Effect stacks, useful for mine layers, so you can put a regulator and a magnet and some warheads on a mine, and your minefield will stay there for a very long time, taking out any submarines that dare come your way. Then you've got the fragmentation warhead, which is somewhat similar to the explosive warhead, except it doesn't do HE damage. It sends out, basically it's a huge shotgun shell. Okay, next you have the camera for the IR seekers. Helps the IR seeker select a useful target. Can be tuned to attack center of mass, shields, or just a random block. So basically, if you want to have swarm missiles that fire on infrared, you can have some fire at different targets, which will spread out your fire and have it be more effective. Next up, we're going to be looking at the cable drum and the harpoon. You get a harpoon head and 200 meters of cabling. So basically, if you fire this, it will have a cable attached to the missile launcher, and you can fire it at pretty much whatever you like. You can attach a cable drum for extra rope, and you can use the harpoon to catch sneaky flyers that want to try and get away from you and move in annoying ways and things like that. And you can stick it to the man and have them stay in place, making them easier to hit for the rest of your fleet. Next up, sticky flares. When in the air, it attracts IR-seeking missiles, can stick to vehicles and make them prominent targets, and attracts more missiles to specific parts of the vehicles. You can have flares fire outwards, and they will distract heat-seeking missiles, of course. So, a good way to get rid of IR-seeking missiles that would otherwise want to take out your engine, for example. And engines are pretty useful. You can also attach multiple flares to make them even more effective. Next up, EMP warhead. Basically sends a huge jolt of electricity throughout any metal blocks. Very useful for taking out AI and shields. Single pixel IR seeker. It's basically like the IR seeker, but it's smaller. It has less drag. And the less drag it has, the faster it goes. We're almost done. Missile interceptor, which is basically another warhead. You can have anti-missile missiles. It will get targets from the AI missile warning cameras, so you have to set that up on your fortress, but they will automatically fire, I believe. It will target a single missile at a time, and if it gets below 20 meters from the target, it will detonate and potentially destroy the missile. It can engage multiple missiles and detonate its charges once per second. Variable thruster. If you want to have a more fuel efficient missile that can go faster, go further or go faster, you want the variable thruster instead of a short range one. Finally, we have the thumper head, which basically is like a huge solid slug on the end, and it does a lot of kinetic impact damage, which is very useful in combination with the beam rider receiver. So you can have beam guided weapons that cause a lot of kinetic impact damage. And finally, you can set up Lua, which is basically coding, so you can have missiles do all sorts of cool stuff. For now, we're just going to go over here. We're going to go assign design to all same length missiles. We're not going to mess around too much with these for now. But there is still one thing that we are lacking. We are lacking an engine. And first of all, I want some fuel storage tanks. We'll put some at the back here. Try and spread it out a bit. And then we go to fuel engine. A fuel engine generator, which is basically where your power comes from. We'll have a little engine. Not too big, but We're not going to be focusing on efficiency or anything. It doesn't need much power anyway. We can just put some cylinders connected to the cylinder, helping cool it. Not connected to a carburetor, that's okay. Those are also connected. We have... let's see, does it change anything? Doesn't really seem to do much. But if we place a carburetor there, you can see that the engine is now producing 200 units of power. And very fuel efficient, hopefully. Now, let's decouple it from the tractor beam and let's take a look if she goes quickly enough. Oh no, yeah, that might be a small design flaw. Whoops. Doesn't actually get any speed there. There we go. My, she's a fast one, isn't she? 10 meters per second. I guess that will do for now. Oh, she is rather unbalanced. That might be a problem. Yeah, we sort of flipped over. Oh, we've got incoming. 6th Airborne. 2 forces, speed 10, altitude 71. Okay, so we're gonna have a fight on our hands soon. Well, we can always put some lead on the bottom, which will basically help. Wait, did I... Ooh, they've added a... Oh, that is gonna be very useful. There's another way to save block count. 4 meter lead. That is going to be very useful. I'm very happy to notice that. That is a great quality of life improvement. You will see later why. Like, that is going to help me reduce the block count on my battleship by a lot. We're going to warp over to the fortress. We're going to tractor the ship back in. At least we know the engine is good enough. There we go. Incoming, back at high speed. Actually, we'll give you a 0.6 drive factor, both. But yeah, I think I am going to end the episode here. Maybe tweak the boat a little off camera to have a version without AI. I mean with AI. That way the AI can take over this ship and we can have multiple going in at the same time. Really pleased with the turret traversion arc. And we will see how this goes. But until then, if you've liked this little building episode where we've built a acceptable ship, I mean, I've built uglier things as my first boat, then please do leave a like down below. It shows me that From the Depths is a series that you wish to see continued. And leave a comment if you have anything to say. And until next time, have a good one, folks.